listening to Hooked on Startups, where every week you'll hear from some of the most talented, inspiring, and successful entrepreneurs who shared their real-life stories, how they overcame challenges and failures, and how they mastered success. Get ready for some of the best business tips, tricks and tactics, and some frank, unscripted discussions. Here's your host, Matthew Sullivan.
So today on Hooked on Startups, I have none other than the inimitable Sanyika Street. Sanyika, welcome to the show.
Wow. Thank you for having me. If you can tell me how to spell inimitable, then I think both of us will be inimitable.
Do you realize that what people don't understand is this is the 19th cut that I've taken to actually say the word inimitable. It is almost impossible to pronounce. And I challenge any of our listeners, oblique readers,
right?
It's very difficult.
You know what? I'm not even going to go down that road because,
20 edits would be embarrassing.
Exactly. How you doing?
Pretty good. I mean, it's great having you on the show. Let me tell everyone a little bit about Sanyika. So you're a performing artist. You're a songwriter, a music producer, a keynote speaker. You are the voice of inspiration. And every day you inspire thousands of people, literally, with your Daily Dose video blog, where you've been speaking for over 365 episodes so far. You do performances and talks around the world that are equal parts music and spoken word message. And you've worked with some pretty big names. And you also partner with some socially responsible brands, creating campaigns that tell the story of social causes through the spoken word.
Yeah, that's a pretty succinct intro. If I could only get the people that love me, that I know every day, like my mother, to introduce me like that, my life would be complete if she could introduce me the way.
I have the same struggle with my wife. When someone says, "So what does your husband do?" She says, "Well, you better ask him."
Right. Got it.
You came up with this fantastic phrase, which is, "Don't let the music die inside of you."
Right.
And I think that is something that entrepreneurs and when you run a business, you start with this vision. Well, you think it's a vision, and you go along this path, and there's so much in life that you do thinking that it's either the right thing to do or you make business decisions, and there comes a point when I think you look yourself in the mirror and say, do I really want to be doing this anymore? Is that kind of, how do you put people back on track? Because I think that's the thing I've discovered most about you, is that you just show the world in a completely different way. You opened my eyes. And I'll tell people a bit later on about one thing in particular that I will be forever grateful for.
Well, I appreciate that. First off, that phrase, "Don't let the music die inside of you," no matter how profound and prophetic a phrase it is, I will not take credit for that one, even though I use it quite often. Being a music guy myself, I definitely make it a mission of mine to never let the music die inside of me. Directly answering your question though, there is a path that we say that the world says we should travel to reach the success that we want to achieve in our lives. And then there's something inside of us that says to deviate from the path. And so my goal is to make that voice of deviation and disruption louder, right? To deviate from the path. And again, the path is meant to show you the road, but you have to filter the information to make it yours, your path, right? So it's a challenge. It's a balancing act. You can go far left or far right, and sometimes you veer completely off the path. But it's a challenge to be able to follow the blueprint that's been given by the many people who have been successful before you, but to still make it your own. I play basketball, right? I'm 6'8", I weigh 280 pounds. For anybody who was seeing me walking on the street, they'd say that's a pretty large human.
Yes, I'll second that, yeah.
When you play basketball, you learn the plays, right? You got to learn the plays. You learn the roadmap, the blueprint for how to run the plays on the floor. But then once you learn the plays, then you learn how to deviate from it to make it your own, right? So it's a balancing act.
But this is all really about what you found from the people that you work with. And as I said earlier, these are big brands, these are big companies, successful people. And I want to talk about honesty, integrity, humility. these types of things where the really successful people are the people that know themselves, that are not doing things because they think other people would applaud them for doing it. They're doing it because they find it within themselves. And I think what you do more than anything else is you help peel away those layers and help people find who they are so that they can almost start another path. Is that a fair description?
I think that's exactly it. I mean, I realized on my own personal path, Matthew, that, many of us have goals and things that we want to achieve in our lives, but if you don't know who you really are, meaning the core, the essence of who you are, then those goals are you're running a blind man's errand. You're pursuing things that don't complete you. They say that, a lot of people say, the goal in life is not to get more money and to get more stuff. And trust me, I know people with a lot of stuff, not rich people. I'm talking about broke people, right? Yeah. Everybody talks about, I know this millionaire who's not happy. I know broke people that aren't happy that have a lot of stuff, right? And the thing about it is that it's the same kind of thing. It's the attainment of things that are not in alignment with who you are as a person. So you got to figure out who you are. And one of the biggest things that I realized from my own personal experiences was that, I hit a bottom point. So let's kind of rewind. Moved to LA from Washington, D.C. About 12 years ago, and I was crushing it. I was doing national commercials on TV. I was doing TV shows on Fox. I was doing everything. And then I took it for granted. And then as I took it for granted, I started to pursue, to sort of pursue the greatest love of my life, which was music and songwriting. So I started to write for artists like Nick Lachey, 98 Degrees, and Too Short, big rappers and pop bands. But the thing about being a good artist, Matthew, is that to be a good artist, you have to have really good human qualities, right? Really good human qualities, meaning like you have to know how to collaborate. You have to know how to be vulnerable. You have to be transparent. You have to be all these good human qualities that I didn't realize I didn't have. So again, I'm pursuing these things, what I didn't realize is I didn't have the human qualities that were necessary for me to be successful in my life. So what I had to do is at that point, I didn't realize it, but I was sinking into depression, right? So I hit the point in my life where I went from a budding career in entertainment to having a drinking problem. I was broke and I was broken.
Is this because you're trying to create something from the wrong place? So in other words, you've built this persona, you've had this success, so you've created your version of Sanyika that you think other people should see.
Yeah.
But it's not. And the reason I talk about this is it's the same thing as where if you're trying to do something that really feeds the soul, people need to do things that they love doing. Otherwise, ultimately, you either can't continue it or you get depressed or it has all sorts of knock-on effects. Is that what you found, that you reached kind of the maximum you could do with that personality and you then had to go through this rebuilding process? Is that what happened? Yeah.
I went through a process of hiding in plain sight. See, look, because I'm so big and I can put a few sentences together with a symbol at the end of them, people would think I had my stuff together. They'd see me on the street. They'd be like, oh, this guy got his stuff together. And I'm like, no, I don't. My life is a mess, right? So as I hit that point, to your point, I hit the maximum on my BS meter. I was like, I got to stop bullshitting myself.
Yes.
Because I was lying to myself for so many years. And so the depression and all those other things that combined that hit me at that point, I thought I lost myself. But you can't lose yourself if you've never found yourself.
But how? What triggers that? What do you do in those circumstances? Other than reaching for the whiskey, or how do you have that internal conversation? Or did you meet someone that helped you see a reflection of yourself that you needed to see?
I'm sure that there were people that I met, but no one that was a consistent feature in my life. I realized internally that I was out of alignment. Right. So the things that I did didn't bring me happiness. So I was doing things that wasn't making me happier. And I intellectually understood it, but I wasn't still not yet ready to take a movement. And then I hit the point where I said, enough is enough. I've got to take some type of action that's going to correct my course.
What was that point?
The point that immediate point that I realized where I needed to take that corrective action in my life was when I had a confrontation with a gentleman that I was working with. He was running a production company. That's when I was at my low point. I was making $12 an hour working for this dude who was like General Patton. He was just a very crazy, wild personality.
Yeah.
And very, very disrespectful. And one day he came into the office when I was on the phone, and I hung the phone up, and he came out into the office, and he said, Sanyika, he said, I don't want you to use your first name anymore because it confuses clients. And at that point in my life, I had already gotten 2 DUIs. I was already broke. I was already broken. Everything in my life was falling apart. And the very last thing I had to hold on to was my identity. The very last thing I had. And now it's under threat. So from that point, that was the point that I realized I'm going to take a transformative action in my life.
And that's a really good thing, because at that point, that's the fork in the road.
Yeah.
Blue pill, red pill.
Right. That is absolutely.
What made you take that course of action? Because you could quite easily have spiraled into descent. You'd be staring at the abyss. What was it inside you that drove you to take the path to bring you to where you are now?
You know what? Minimizing it to one specific thing, I can tell you, is an illusion. It's a series of events. It's a series of events that you go through in your life and then you look back on it and you say, oh yeah, that was the period in my life. But there was no specific point, but I do remember the point that actually gave me hope.
Yes.
And the point that gave me hope was when I realized that I needed to confront some traumas in my life.
Yeah.
Right. To confront the traumas. And so the way I decided to confront my traumas was by doing video blogs.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what, if I tell my personal story on camera, at least I can tell it to the world, be honest, and then get my story out in a way that is honest and transparent, because I realized that the two things that I didn't have in my life were vulnerability and transparency. So on my first blog, it allowed me to be creative. It allowed me to tell my story in an honest way, and it allowed me to just share who I was as a person. That was a pivotal point.
But there's a huge amount of accountability that goes with that, because effectively you're going from someone who was very private, who had this outward appearance that was obviously very different to where you were underneath.
Right.
But it's actually making that decision to say, I need to be this person because there's a pathway ahead of me that will only work if I realign all of these components, and it's like a frequency thing. It's like a harmony thing.
Right.
And so how important to you was that accountability? The fact that if I'm saying this, people are listening, I'm now accountable to them.
It was everything. It was everything. I mean, when you look back on it, Matthew, the power in communities, meaning prehistoric, civilizations hundreds and hundreds of years ago, was that there were people in your community that knew you, right? People in your locale that knew you. And not only does that produce a level of comfort because everybody is local, but it also provides a level of accountability because they expect things from you. They expect you to do your job. They expect you to go to work. They expect you to provide for your family. And when you step out of alignment with that expectation, then people hold you accountable to the person that they know you to be, right? So when I started to present myself in a way where people actually were able to hold me accountable, I was able to raise my level of productivity. I met the challenge and I surpassed it. And I was like, oh, well, if I can do this in this moment, maybe I can do this in every moment. And maybe by continuing to hold myself accountable, I can actually reach the goals that I want to achieve in my life.
And those goals, I presume, are to be that central focal point of inspiration, to be a point that people trust and people go to seek the energy to help them get over whatever hump or roadblock that they're facing at that time.
Without question. I mean, my goal is to fire people up to become rock stars in their lives.
That's so difficult though, because you need to be such an open book, because people really need to believe in and listen to what you're saying. They have to have complete faith in you as a person. This is not some sort of PR stunt. So So do you find you have to peel back all the layers to really present yourself?
Yeah, and that's the thing I decided to master. So here's the first thing I want to say. I want to give death to the untrained expert. Death to the untrained expert, right? I am over it. There are so many people trying to be experts because they think that being an expert will produce the quality of life that they seek when they have never been trained. When I first started out, just because I have a desire to help people and an ability to help to sort of relate ideas, that doesn't make me a qualified coach per se, right? It doesn't make me a qualified psychoanalyst. It doesn't make me, an anthropologist. Any of these other things that a lot of people are presenting themselves as. I said, you know what? My goal is to be able to master the idea of stripping away every aspect of my own humanity and getting down to the core of what it means to be alive, to pursue your objectives, and to live an inspired, consistent life. And
what have you learned? So but it's dangerous. You're putting yourself out there.
Yeah. Actually, let me take that back. I don't think there's a level of danger associated with exposing yourself.
I mean, it's dangerous, in other words, because you can't undo this stuff. It's dangerous, not from a physical, but it's a one-way street.
No, actually, it's not. It's not. I get so much personal value. Like you said, you want to make sure that this is authentic, right? Like that's the goal, is to be authentic. So part of that authenticity, because again, from my perspective, in my previous life, I was not living an authentic life, right? I was saying things, but I would talk about it, but I wasn't being about it, right? So I have to be in alignment. So as I work with brands and about helping to move social movements, positive social movements and causes and all of that, then that means I need to be volunteering at these places and doing that work. But by being on the ground with people in these places, it brings me a greater sense of satisfaction. It brings me a greater sense of alignment. It brings me great perspective. That openness, that rawness with these people helps to transform people's lives. Literally, I see it every day. And so when I open myself up, like as Marianne Williamson said in Our Deepest Fear, she said, as we allow our own light to shine, we enable others to do the same. So that is my objective, is to allow people to open up. And the biggest thing that I realized, Matthew, is that I know the 3 most important words that you will ever say in your life. The 3 most important words that were the key to your success. The key to your success, and it is the complete opposite of the untrained expert. And those 3 words are the key to unlocking every aspect of your life, to accomplishing great goals, to achieving great success, to doing everything that it is that you want to do. And most people are too afraid and too closed and too constricted to be able to ever realize how valuable those 3 words are.
And those words?
It's not, I love you. It's not. People say, I love you are the 3 most important words. Stevie Wonder wrote a song about those 3 words. Those are not the 3 words that will save you. They don't. As a matter of fact, love is probably one of the most vague terms that has the most impact in the world. And many people, everybody's got a different interpretation of the word love, which is probably one of the reasons why it may not be the best 3 words. The 3 most important words that you will ever say in your life, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, are I don't know. I don't know. 3 most important words you will ever say. Because on the other end of those 3 words lies all of the information that you seek in this life. All of it. Everything that you want is on the other end of that phrase. I don't know. But I'm going to find out. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I mean, if you ask me a question, I don't know the answer, I'll be like, I don't know. And you know what it does, Matthew? It builds trust. It builds rapport. It builds congruency. It builds transparency. It does all of those things that you never realized that you could do by not trying to be an untrained expert and just being authentically honest and saying, I don't know.
It's funny, but when you talk about an untrained expert, it's funny because you can be an untrained expert with an audience of 1, which is yourself. And so in other words, let's put things in perspective here. We're not targeting necessarily people who have an audience and are feeding them snake oil.
Right.
We're talking about an individual here potentially where you've convinced yourself that you are the trained expert, yet you are untrained.
Right.
You are the sample of one, and you've convinced yourself that you know when in fact you don't know. And that's the path that you've managed to unravel for yourself.
Right.
And
Right.
you've
Yeah, absolutely. Like as you hooked on startups, right? So a lot of startups, they grow in incubators, right? So I call it, and you put it very succinctly. That was brilliant. I call it incubating your own ideas.
Yeah.
A lot of people incubate their own ideas because they're afraid of what people's perspectives will be on their ideas if they're challenged. And so that constriction, that wall prevents you from being disappointed and hurt and let down, but it also prevents you from the greatest opportunity of growth, meaning to pursue the success that you want to achieve in your life.
And it's fear of failure. Again, another ailment of the entrepreneur. It's the fear of trying something and it not working, because if that one thing doesn't work, then the whole plan is doomed.
Right.
But what you've done is prove that actually, it doesn't work. This isn't working. And so by not being afraid of failure, because by opening your kimono, as it were, by
right, break it wide open.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. This is me, as it were. So,
right,
throw the rocks and stones, as it were, because if this is getting a little bit biblical, but the point there is, if you're not afraid of these sort of distractions, then you can follow your own vision and your own course,
right,
without being afraid of those winds from the left that are going to sort of blow you off course.
Right. That is it. I mean, and dialing in even deeper on fear of failure. I posted something like this on my Facebook page the other day. People talk about, are you afraid of success? Right. And I was like, that's the most backwards personal compliment to yourself you can ever say, right? I'm afraid of achieving all of the great goals that I want to achieve.
But it's a real thing, this imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
it's very well documented that
it is the imposter syndrome without a doubt. The imposter syndrome, the fear of a feeling like you don't belong per se.
Well, I don't deserve this success.
Right, I don't deserve it. Right, and so the thing is that when you are one of the things that I believe is that I don't believe many people are afraid of success. I believe more people are afraid of, again, human traits, human stuff, like being more transparent, being more vulnerable, being more authentic, being more honest about what they feel. It's the human stuff. I think people are afraid of the human stuff. As I say, you give the world a better human, the world will give you more opportunity.
I think imposter syndrome is almost a bit like fear of being found out.
Right. Fear of being found out. But here's the thing, like going back to the thing you said to me before, you said, what if you got to prove that it's authentic, prove that it's real, right? When you're doing the work on the ground, right? When you're in the trenches doing the work, man, that imposter syndrome, even though it comes up, even though you feel it, because there's a feeling, and I've talked to some really successful people that have a feeling of the imposter syndrome, but I will tell you that when you're on the ground doing the work and affecting people's lives, the thing that snaps you out of it is the fact that someone reminds you by the work that you're producing, that you're making a qualitative improvement in their lives, right? You're improving the quality of someone's life every day.
I think people there's a lot of spoken word pieces that you've performed that I've listened to, and they are moving. I mean, they are, and this is not bullshit. I mean, they really do. You listen to the words; they're very cleverly put together. They resonate. The rhythm, just the movement of the piece themselves.
I appreciate that.
You find that after this rebirth, I guess, for want of a better expression, do you find that's affected your work in a way? Has it changed? Are you doing stuff with a different slant now than it was beforehand?
Yeah. I got a big voice and I yell louder now. Yeah, because it comes from the right place. When you tap it, see, when you go through adversity, right? When you dig your way out of adversity, it doesn't mean that, okay, now I've dug my way out of adversity. Now I've figured it out. All it means is that now I have a shovel, right? Yeah. It means I have a tool. So now I can take this tool and I can show people how to use it. They say in the 49 gold rush, right? So funny. In the gold rush, in the 49er gold rush, the majority of people didn't get rich by finding gold. You know how they got rich?
Picks and shovels.
Selling shovels, right? There you go. They got rich by selling shovels.
It's the intel of the same thing. It's this, but you're right. It's the thing that is often the thing that makes most money, or the thing that you do best at, is often the thing that you least expect. Right. Everybody wanted to get gold, but the money's not in the gold.
Exactly.
So the thing that you're doing, you think that thing that you're doing day in, day out is the thing that serves your purpose. But what you're saying is, look, listen to what I'm saying, because it could not be that. Yeah. It could be something else.
And the same thing. And again, I realized this for myself. Everyone was like, after you tap in, so we talked about being your authentic self, becoming the most authentic version of yourself, coming from a place where you have to confront your personal traumas to realize the greater potential that you have inside of you. Well, then after you confront your personal traumas and you present yourself to the world, the question is what is that wow factor that you're going to bring? What's the thing that what's your imprint on the world going to be?
But the problem is, the danger with that is that takes me back to, I'm not good enough, so I have to manufacture some sort of wow factor.
Right. Yeah. So as we talk about it, as opposed to, because again, let's be real with it. When I started out on the journey of my personal brand, right, about who I am, what I'm going to be doing, my offering to the world, everyone was just saying, hey, Sanyika, just be a speaker. Hey, you got a great voice. You're a big person. Get on stage, yell at people for 45 minutes, and then get a check for $25,000, right? That's what people were saying. So I said, yeah, sure, I could do that, but there's something missing, right? There's something really missing. So then let's take it back a second. Remember you said about the imposter syndrome, right? What happens is that when you start serving people the way that you just naturally serve people, then not only is that feedback, not only are you providing them with your service, you are getting feedback on the contribution that you've made in their lives. It's data. It's big data that you are collecting from the individuals that you serve. So as you give to them, you receive their information and their love and their reflection. And so they say to you, Matthew, you're a funny guy, right? They say, you're a funny guy. You should do a podcast. And you say, the first time you say, well, no, I'm not going to do a podcast. I'm just a good looking guy from Great Britain. And, I'm saying, and I'm just going to, use my, my charm and my good looks to do all the crazy things and get a Corvette and just drive around PCH and when I move to California, right? And
you do realize people will figure out that you're lying here. So.
Yeah, that's the whole, that's the whole point. But, but the thing is that they'll give you that feedback because you're serving people. And so as you have more guests on the show, they'll give you the feedback, they'll give you the clues, and you take that. And so as I started to dig into what my natural talent is, which is the writing, the biggest transition I made was thinking that my gift was writing to actually knowing that it was actually the delivering of it as well, the performance.
And again, you came out with this incredibly succinct message, which is your fans are waiting.
Yeah.
So I don't think you need, I think what you're saying is you don't actually need this wow factor. You don't need to engineer yourself.
That is correct.
Because just by being yourself,
right,
everybody has fans. There are people that want to listen to your story or listen to who you are, no matter who you are.
Yeah, no matter who you are. The most basic version of who you are as a human is the greatest offering that you have to the world.
But then the task is, how do you put that into action? And in other words, okay, I feel it. I can feel that energy now, but what do I need to do to actually I'm ready for this.
Right.
What are the steps? How do I do it?
Serve people. Okay. So so what Uber and Airbnb and all of these companies are specialties in, right? As we've discussed before many times, Airbnb is not a residential company, and Uber is definitely not a taxi service, right? They are companies that are masters in quantifying data, Right? They take data and they collect it and they say, this is what the data says. The data says people need more time. Let's give them a vehicle service that's going to help them to get to where they need to go in a quicker period of time than it would if they took a taxi, right? And then let's make it the most simplest process, put enough drivers out there, that kind of thing. Same thing with Airbnb. How can you get the data? Because right now, the goal of the entrepreneur is to, as I got this from Eric Rice, he says, the goal of the entrepreneur is to convert hypothesis to fact, right? And the only way that you can do that is with information, right? Yeah. So as you take your hypothesis, it says, maybe I am good at this. I need to take this out into the universe and I need to get data from serving people doing whatever it is that I choose to do. Take that data, analyze it, and figure out if that's the direction that I need to go.
But it doesn't happen overnight. How do?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
How do I know? I mean,
accent right now.
Because I mean, I'm alluding to your again, another one of your sort of memes, as it were, which is inspired, consistent action.
Yeah.
How critical is that for the pathway?
Okay, so I have a core philosophy. It's called "Your fans are waiting," and your fans are waiting means that with inspired, consistent action, that you can reach the success that's waiting for you. So I don't believe that success is something that we need to create because it's been created by countless people before us. So I believe that success is a space that we grow into, right? So the question then becomes, well, you know, how do we find inspiration, right? How do you find inspiration in your everyday life? And, you know, inspiration is not, you know, this self-grown, you know, this intellectual thought process and a spark of light that comes. I mean, it depends on how big the carrot is at the end of your stick. That's you pull your inspiration from that carrot. And so whatever those goals, if my goal is to feed my child, then I am inspired to take to put myself to work, to go to work and to continue so I can feed my child.
And that's the critical thing there is why are you doing this? What is your vision? So you then, once you understand why you're doing this thing, does that make it easier to figure out what the pathway is? You mentioned,
it puts you on the path. It puts you on the path. Now you just gotta, with that idea that I need to feed my child, because that's with the inspiration to feed my child, then that puts me on the path of these inspired, consistent actions. Inspired, consistent action. In my inspired, consistent action, meaning every day I take myself to work so I can feed my child. Right now, again, the goal that you have, it can grow. It can become bigger than just that one goal that you start out with.
But in other words, there's method.
So
you're saying that, okay, once you've got that inspiration, once you know what your goal is, and it could be anything,
right?
It could be to dominate the market in extracting moonbeams from cucumbers. I don't know.
Right.
But once you've got that, then what you're saying is that you can help people understand what steps they need to take.
Yeah.
In the same way that when you uncovered your path and, you know, to become this inspirational speaker and to be there on the same stage as the big brands, that's your objective. But you know that there are steps you need to take. And these aren't giant leaps. These are
everyday things. The reason that you want to take consistent actions, the reason I started doing a daily blog is because I wanted to master the art of consistency. And I realized that we have to learn to trust ourselves. You have to teach yourself to trust yourself. You don't just automatically go out and say, hey, you know what, I want to be a speaker. And then all of a sudden, you're a pro. You have to actually learn how to trust yourself. And as I learned that I could trust myself, to rely on myself, it creates a feeling of self-empowerment. The other part about it is that when you do something every single day, that you are going to get critiques on it. People are going to give you, say, hey, look, I think you could do this differently. I think you could do that differently. And so for some people, they'll say, well, everybody's constantly critiquing me about all the stuff that I'm doing. Or you can say, man, now I'm starting to get the help that I was looking for. Exactly. It's easier to move an object in motion. If a boulder is in front of me, it's hard to move it. And what happens is most people are sedentary and thinking, man, I don't know how to get out of my own way. Well, now maybe I want to do this. And I'm talking about, they are pondering the existence of life. They are literally the thinker, right? So the thing is that you have to get that rock moving. Like Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom, that rock got to be rolling down the hill. But once the boulder, this huge boulder, your actions, your inspired, consistent actions are moving down the hill, all you got to do is guide it. And people will help you guide it because they see you moving. They'll help you.
And the universe wants that momentum to happen.
Without question. Without question.
It doesn't, it doesn't want things to be stationary. It wants, there's the energy in the universe. If there's something within you, I think, depending on where you look, but if you look in the right places, everything's trying to prod you forwards.
It is. I'm telling you, it's, there are so many people that will come together to help you when they see you moving with intention and not moving with some fake manufactured purpose, but a vision that is greater than you. Your vision, your goal at the end of the day should be so big that you must kneel before it. Right. And so when people say that, people go, oh, you know what? I want to create the next $10 billion company. And then I want it to be so big that I have to. No. My goal is to feed my child at the end of the day. I must kneel before that goal. That's
yes.
A big world goal, is to feed that kid. So if your goal is big, meaning that it empowers someone else, that it changes or transforms someone's life, that child will grow to an adult that you want to become a productive, contributing citizen. So if that goal is bigger than you, meaning I'm a very large person, so my goals better be enormous, right? I better be able to really impact some people's lives. So I must kneel before my goals. My goals must make my hands and my knees dirty at the end of the day.
And you're right. And it's all about having achievable goals.
Right.
And or at least, as you say, with inspired, consistent action.
Right.
If I say, as I was talking to someone earlier today, I want to have a 6-pack, just, you got to figure out, if I have a 6-pack, I want to have a 6-pack by when?
Right.
Then,
right.
I'm going to have to do some sit-ups.
Right.
You don't just, you can't buy a 6-pack somewhere.
Look, you'd be surprised. If you can buy a new butt and you can buy some new boobs, then you can buy your 6-pack.
Yeah.
Not, I ain't talking about a 6-pack unless you buy a new beer, but I'm talking about, if you want to go outside and have your little beach body. But, for a guy like you, all you just need to do is go outside and tell people that you're from Britain and that you need to start.
I don't need a 6-pack, exactly.
Exactly. Right.
I wish I'm going to have to resort to that. But I have some questions for you, Sanyika, and these questions are all your fault.
No.
So we were, I just want to thank you for these, because we were chatting about the podcast and you pointed me at these questions. So I remember we were sitting there in this in little Vietnam over a phone.
Right.
Fantastic. And you said, you know what, you should, there's some great questions. I think his name was James Lipton from Inside the Actors Studio, something like that. So you got your phone out and you said, look, these are brilliant questions. This is what you need to ask people these questions. So I now ask people these questions, and it has the most amazing effects. It is a huge move. So I'm going to ask you. You're going to be the first person that I'm going to ask these questions. Wow. So,
well, I very much appreciate that. Absolutely.
Well, it's the least I could do. But James Lipton. So he's a fantastic guy from the Inside the Actors Studio. He's been running for donkey's years. And these are the questions. You'll see. The first one is, what is your favorite word?
My favorite word is yes.
That's pretty straightforward. And what is your least favorite word?
My least favorite word is no.
And what are you most excited about right now?
The thing I'm most excited about is living in my purpose to the point where I know that when I turn 80 years old, I'm going to be exhausted by doing everything that I wanted to do.
Fabulous. And what turns you off right now?
What turns me off is the word yes.
Really?
Yeah. Look, yeah, what turns me off is the word yes is as much as we want to receive it, it means that I've gotten what I need. So now I can turn the energy off so I can move forward to the next objective.
Never stop running. So
Yeah.
what sound or noise do you love?
Sound and noise do I love? I love the sound of I love the sound of that's a good one. I love the sound of a basketball on a basketball court.
Fantastic. And what sound or noise do you hate?
Sound and noise do I hate? I hate the I hate the sound of people that complain.
Okay. And what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I would like to be I'd like to be the CEO of a record label.
Fantastic. And what profession would you not like to attempt?
Oh, a waiter. I can't be a waiter. You can't put people my size in busy traffic. Plates are flying. People are going to be knocked over. It's going to be mayhem. It's going to be a mess.
Fantastic. And the last question, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Are you sure you're done?
Wow. Well, Sanyika, thank you for being the most fantastic guest. How do people get in touch with you? How do they contact you? How do they find out more about you?
Okay. My new website launches the first week of September. You just go to yourfansarewaiting.com. You can see me on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, and you can go to my Facebook page, Sanyika Street -- Your Fans Are Waiting. And
you're all over Instagram as well. Let's not forget that.
You can always catch the Daily Dose, which is going through a reformatting right now. But you can catch the Daily Dose on @Sanyika Street on Instagram. And then when the website's up, you'll see all the different places I'm performing. I have a tour that is starting in perpetuity next weekend, and it'll be running throughout. So you'll literally be able to see me every weekend.
Oh, wonderful. Listen, well, you've got to go. I mean, people have to go, and it's fantastic to watch you. But Sanyika, thank you once again, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Absolutely. Very much appreciated, Matthew, and love the show, love everything that you're doing, and then much success in the future.